Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Positives with Rachelle. Folks, it's always great to be here with you. I know a few weeks ago I shared with you just a quick update from our local Walmart here in Novi-Michigan that is actually facing a few struggles, and they've cut their hours, anyways, this and that. But I have actually consolidated my retail shopping to that location. Now, I used to go to the Walmart location in Commerce Township closer to my gym, but I just can't have my own local location here struggling. But anyway, folks, I got to tell you about something that happened. So I was in there on the 6th of June around 8:30, and that's actually late for me. I'm typically in there 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, was in there 8:30, and you know how they have the employee meeting. So in the middle of the floor, they've got a boatload of employees standing around talking, and one person was leading the group meeting. But anyway, by the time I made it down to the self-checkout area towards the grocery end of the store, they were performing the Walmart chant. You know what, I've read about it. I actually have a biography on Sam Walton, one of my most treasured books, but I heard the Walmart chant for the first time ever. So anyway, folks, I just had to start out with that. You never know what's going to happen, when you step foot inside of a Walmart. We're so excited to hear that, folks. But shifting gears here into this marketing series and kicking off this series on the value of competition. Competition doesn't matter what your industry is, doesn't matter where you're located. Competition is fierce, and especially with innovation and technology, it's just going to continue to increase. And so I always want you to be always out front, ahead of the competition, whenever humanly possible. But folks, here it is again. How many times have I showed this over the years? The beloved SWOT analysis. And I keep bringing it up from time to time because it is so important, so relevant to business strategy, regardless of what we're talking about, fitness facilities and the fitness industry or not. This is absolutely critical to business success. And those corporations, companies, facilities that are uber successful are those that are relentlessly focused on components of the SWOT analysis. And so, folks, here again, we always have new people watching, so I don't ever want to take it for granted of what this acronym means. So these are internal strengths and weaknesses of your facility or facilities, chain of facilities, whatever the case may be. These are external, the opportunities and the threats that exist in the market. And we could talk about general competition, if you're selling beverages, if you're selling bottled water. I mean, you're not just competing, obviously, you're competing with other bottled water companies or manufacturers, but you're also competing with sports drinks, you're also competing with other types of bottled beverages and actually non-bottled beverages. You want to look at the overall category. But anyway, folks, thinking about the SWOT analysis and how important it is, are you aware of your strengths and weaknesses? Okay, there's a great way if you're unsure, if you want to see if you diligently tried to make some improvements over the last year or so. You want to see basically where you stand. Ask your members. Ask your members, ask potential members, look at your online reviews. People tend to be brutally honest in those, Google reviews, Yelp reviews. Take a look at those and ask them. You could do SurveyMonkey, free email surveys to your members. I mean, there's myriad different ways that you can gather this type of feedback to see internally where you stack up, but also externally. Always want to keep your eye out on the marketplace and what's happening in the marketplace. Yes, locally, but nationally, regionally, because there are always, depending on industries, things that could be happening that can directly or indirectly impact your operation. So it's so important to know that, and opportunities as well as threats. And this threats, it could be a new facility moving in, new chain of facilities, a new chain of studios. But this could be everything from the economy to a plant or a company closing nearby or in the same geography. And this one, I was actually in Ann Arbor on Friday the 7th for a continuation of a research trial with the University of Michigan. And Crunch Fitness, I knew it was coming, is opening up in Ann Arbor. And their situation is they've got a phase 1 parking lot construction project going on. So even in the section of the strip mall, a pretty large strip mall, that whole parking lot is phase 1 of like phase 2 or 3 in terms of their redoing the whole thing. And so that right there is a threat. And a lot of times you can't predict that when you're opening a facility, or perhaps if you're just currently in operations, and something like that happens all the time, particularly during construction season. And so all of a sudden, all these businesses are being negatively impacted because people are avoiding the area because of the construction. So it's things like that. You want to evaluate each and everything, each and every entity externally that could potentially impact your operations, folks. So important. Next here, and this is something, and as I've been doing these episodes, whether I'm writing or whether I'm speaking or training, whatever the case may be, and I'm highlighting people, I'm highlighting examples, profiling, those type of things. I'm always looking for, so this is the bell curve. I mean, you talk about this, it's often described in terms of statistics, and probability models and all of that, but I won't get into all of that, but statistically speaking, okay, this is a bell curve. And so we see this is the bell curve right here. And so whether we're talking about a chain of gyms, whether we're talking about a group of voters, whatever the case may be, see, most people will fall under this bell curve. All right, and so we have here, as I've drawn here, that would be the mean. In some cases you have the median, but this is where most entities, people, organizations, corporations fall. The mean, the average. And of course, you see here on these two sides here, I've indicated those are the outliers. You have positive outliers, you have negative outliers. And so these, the positive outliers, particularly as it pertains to marketing, these are your early innovators, early adopters, people that tend to jump on things, technology, they tend to adopt to things pretty quickly, just to utilize a marketing example. All right, but then you have your negative outliers, and those will be people that take forever. It may take them years to get an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy phone or something like that, because they want to keep what they like their flip phones, whatever. With all due respect to both classes of people, but those are the types of people, if you're trying to sell an iPhone or if you're trying to sell a Samsung Galaxy, the people that are taking along, the slow adopters, the late adopters, are folks that you definitely don't want to be targeting, rigorously, because you will end up just blowing your budget when it's going to take that particular segment of customers a long time to adopt to what you're offering anyway. But your positive outliers, these are the folks that are just right on it. And so, but quite frankly, as I stated, most people fall in the middle. They're average. And so as we proceed on during this marketing series, I'm going to be referring to both of these, our SWOT analyses, but also just you always want to strive to be out front, to be a positive outlier in terms of your facility, in terms of your value proposition, in terms of what you have to offer. Because quite frankly, folks, people are not running out, lining up by the thousands to join average facilities. That's just the reality of what it is. So you always want to strive. You always want to strive to think about, what can we do better? What can we own? What areas of excellence can we absolutely own in our marketplace, or in the markets in which we operate? So we're going to be coming back to these as this series progresses. But the SWOT analysis, and I've got some examples here. As you can see, my stack here of show and tell. This is a show and tell episode. Next week, when we have a continuation of looking at marketing in a different light, but also some additional show and tell. But folks, this is an article that appeared in our Hometown Life. So it was on our Novi News. It's a local community newspaper. And so I've been saving this for a long time. So this appeared on April 5th, but I knew in the Value of Competition episode, this would be perfect. So Susan Bromley wrote an article entitled Jaguar Land Rover Plans Move to Novi from Farmington Hills with Huge New Facility. And I want to read this really quickly. So it says, Jaguar Land Rover, on the prowl to expand its territory, will relocate from Farmington Hills to Novi, building an entirely new dealership. Let me digress here quickly. We have Novi, and we have to our immediate east, we have Farmington Hills. All right, so that just explains for the context, because most of you are not located here in Michigan. So continuing, the Novi City Council unanimously approved on April 1st applicant Erhard Motor Sales preliminary site plan and special development option, which calls for construction of a 58,663 square foot facility on 9.5 acres of vacant land on the southwest corner of Grand Rear Avenue and Meadowbrook Road. That piece of property has been vacant forever, Mayor Bobgat said. It is getting zero tax dollars, and all of a sudden a highly acclaimed car dealership wants to locate there. It's a boon for the city in tax revenue and will bring prestige to the city, and Kitty Corner is largest selling Cadillac dealer in the entire country. It's good competition. And folks, when I saw that, that just made my day. That just made my day. And let me just read this final paragraph here. We've got more, but just in the interest of time, I can't continue on this. Ken Wilderstedt, facilities manager for Erhard Motor Sales, said the company purchased the Jaguar franchise that was located in Novi at 10 Mile and Haggerty 3 years ago, agreeing to build a new facility for both the Jaguar and Land Rover brands. They began looking for a location along the Grand River Corridor and found the Novi property, which they have been working on obtaining approval for all permits and plans for 2 years. It's a good neighborhood, good location, a part of what Novi calls the Gateway East entry into the city, Wilderstedt said. It gives us more room to do everything. And so, folks, and why I saved this particular article was, again, the competition. The competition. Going back to our SWOT analysis, okay, we have, and this surprised me a few years ago when I first found this out, the number one, it's absolutely, and the article alluded to it, the number one Cadillac dealer in the nation is located right here in Novi, Michigan. But now, you've got Land Rover, you've got a Jaguar combined dealership going to be locating right across the street. Right across the street. All right, and so the Cadillac folks, you know, again, how do you react to that threat? What happens? You've owned that. You've owned, basically, your dealership has owned the nation in terms of Cadillac sales. Now you've got a major luxury dealer competitor moving across the street. And so I'll update you in terms of how things, you know, ultimately pan out, but that is an example. All right, you may own your market, but then all of a sudden, bam, a major fitness competitor, major fitness chain, major fitness studio, or independent or private studio comes along, and now your market share is just decreased, or in some cases, many cases, quite frankly, you're forced to close. So that's why you've always got to be paying attention to what's going on, and that's why you're not caught off guard, and you're surprised. Oh, so and so opened 6 months ago, and we've lost half of our members. All right, because the particular person was not paying attention to the threats. Yes, the opportunities are great, and you can certainly explore opportunities and take advantage of those, but these threats can be life or death in terms of your business and your business success. All right, so just had to share that. All right, folks, but I want to move on now to another article here. This appeared April 30th in Forbes magazine. See, folks, you know, I just save all these things for these episodes because I read them, and then certain things really catch my attention, particularly around this aspect of competition. So this was an article that appeared. The title of the article is "Whopper of a Turnaround." All right, Chloe Sorvino wrote this article, basically talking about, if you haven't heard, you know, McDonald's, some good things are happening at Burger King, and so we've known for years and years, you know, Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's. There's just been this 1, 2, and 3 in terms of, you know, the fast food market in this area, just nationally, actually globally. So there's always been the battle between those three, but particularly McDonald's, of course, you know, remaining number one, but Burger King being number two. So this article talks about some of the things that Burger King has been doing in terms of turning things around. You know, in full disclosure, I worked at Burger King in Shreveport, Louisiana, right before college. So I always like to disclose those types of things, but folks, Burger King. So on to the article here. Challenge, and I'm not going to read this whole article because it's extremely long, but I've highlighted some key points here. Challenge, make a 60-year-old hamburger chain into something good. Daniel Schwartz accepted that assignment 6 years ago after 3G Capital took over Burger King and named Schwartz chief executive. He was 32. Burger King was a tired outfit with a confusing menu and sales going sideways. Its restaurants average half the revenue of McDonald's, but where there's underperformance, there is opportunity. Again, going back to the SWOT analysis, opportunity. Schwartz slashed overhead at the Miami headquarters. He streamlined food preparation. He dished out stock to middle managers. He shrank the payroll and the capital budget by selling company-owned stores to franchisees. Restaurant Brands is now a growth stock. Burger King opened up 1,000 restaurants around the globe last year to 600 for McDonald's. McDonald's stores still have a bigger average volume, but Burger Kings are gaining on them. In the U.S., Burger King, boosted its average volume per outlet by 30% to 1.4 million, while McDonald's had a gain of only 20%. Skipping here, 3 months ago, the company introduced the Whopper Detour promotion, in which Burger King offered its signature item for a cent if the customer ordered food on the Burger King or BK phone app within 600 feet of a McDonald's location. Talk about competition. Talk about threat. The threat within that SWOT analysis. All right, continuing. In February came the 45-second Super Bowl ad featuring historic footage of Andy Warhol slowly unwrapping and methodically eating a Whopper. The BK app topped the charts in Apple's App Store during the campaign. Yes. Throughout the Super Bowl, Andy Warhol was the most searched term on Google. Skipping. A lanky guy, talking about Swartz, a lanky guy who has a big smile and a tendency to speak with his hands. Swartz left Cornell in 2001 with a degree in applied economics. 4 years later, he landed a job at 3G Capital, the private equity firm that became famous for engineering the Anheuser-Busch InBev merger and later infamous for the sickly Kraft-Heinz merger. All right, last paragraph here. Swartz became a 3G partner at age 27. Skipping a little bit, at age 29, Swartz became BK's chief financial officer. He sold a corporate jet. He told employees to use Skype to make free international calls. And to get a feel for the whole business, he worked shifts off and on at Miami Burger King's, cleaning toilets, cooking burgers, and manning the drive-thru. In 2012, 3G took Burger King public again, and Swartz got the chief executive slot in June 2013. In the next 18 months, Burger King's stock doubled while McDonald's lost 8%. Again, this is not an endorsement of Burger King. I'm not giving investment advice, but this is just an example of competition, the power of competition, and particularly from a leadership perspective. Some of the things that have to happen in order for chains or businesses, corporations to turn things around. It often starts, the famous John Maxwell leadership expert quote, everything rises and falls with leadership. But I thought this was wonderful. You got this young guy, Swartz, really turning the corporation, the organization on its head, but is making such a very positive, powerful difference. But think about that from a SWAT perspective. If you're McDonald's, you're thinking, wow, we've owned the market for so long, and now Burger King is continuing to innovate, to make changes, to become a more formidable threat. So that was a great example. I had to share that. This is another one that appeared on the May 31st, or in the May 31st edition of Forbes. This was an article, and this was very long. I'm not going to go through this article, but the title of the article is Tempest in a Tea Bottle. And I just want to read something really quickly here as it goes back to this whole aspect of competition and the value of competition. George Thomas Dave convinced America to love a tangy, tart, fermented beverage from Asia called kombucha, and it made him a billionaire. His greatest challenge, surviving the rush of competitors flooding a market he once had to himself. Happens all the time. As I stated, your facility may be number one in town, have the most number of members, and then all of a sudden, bam, a major competitor comes, and then what are you doing? And so this guy, this article actually, profiles and details, what happened, and then some of the competitive situation in terms of what's happening. And so just a great example, again, leadership. See, all of these competitive examples are coming back to leadership. It's huge. And when we think about competition, we know we've got the NBA finals, and this whole playoff season and all of that. And just this is true in all sports. And I've talked about the value of defensive pressure. When you watch these playoffs and tournaments and all of that, sports fans will definitely attest to the fact that, if there's people aren't playing defense, you're just kind of watching this stuff like, what is this? When they have the all-star games and all of that, even in the NBA, and both teams are scoring 130 something, 140 something, 150 something points because nobody's playing defense. But of course, they don't want to injure themselves and put their contracts into jeopardy. Certainly understand that. But just think about when folks are playing defense. It just makes a total difference in a game, in a tournament, in a playoff, in a championship. Just that stifling pressure that can come from well-executed defensive plays. And this is true certainly in the fitness industry, particularly as it relates to fitness facilities, in a new competitor opening up, or a new chain opening up, a new studio, whatever the case may be opening up. Defensive pressure, although it may not feel like it, for those entities being impacted by it, is a good thing, because it forces organizations, chains, private gyms and studios to up their game. But then I go back to the whole thing of the bell curve. When people aren't running and rushing out to join average facilities. All right, so that's why you always want to be out front. You want to be just have better product offerings, better training staff, just all of that to give yourself a competitive edge so you're not constantly reacting to new entrants in the market. So this defensive pressure is wonderful. A lot of people, a lot of owners and leaders, fitness facility leaders will disagree because they hate it. They hate it when new market entrants come in and all of that and threaten their market share, threaten their membership base. But I assure you folks, it is a good thing. It is a good thing. You always want to bring your A game. Even when you're conceptualizing a new facility, or you're bringing, your inaugural franchisee bringing a chain to a particular market, you always want to bring your A game. Don't come in there average. Come in there strong. Come in there killing it from day one, and you will find yourself less, reacting less. And certainly, hopefully, not at all to defensive pressure, because what you've built and what you've established is so strong that you're killing it from day one. All right, that's always the goal. And so when we think about competition, and as I alluded to here earlier in this episode, you can think in terms of general competition. All right, so if you're opening up a new gym, a new private gym, and you think, okay, well, I'm competing with all the other gyms and studios and all of that in the marketplace. No, you need to think about, okay, you're competing with Peloton bikes. You're competing with on-demand training services. You're competing with fitness or personal training fitness apps that people can work right with a trainer, right from an app on their phone, person to person, on live time, all of that. And so you got to think, broaden that thinking. You go back to the SWOT analysis and thinking of threats, realize how broad that is. Think in general terms. All right, so that's certainly one level, but also, and this is certainly true for franchisees, you want to think about, and this is certainly true for private gym owners, studio owners, YMCAs, all of that, is enter franchise competition. But this is obviously more relevant certainly to franchisees, but you've got Anytime competing with Planet competing with Crunch. You've got, Snap. You've got so many different examples. Orange Theory Fitness, Title Boxing Club, 9 Round. I could go on and on within the fitness category of fitness chains, all right, and fitness franchises. All right, so you need to recognize you're competing, yes, on a general sense with a Peloton bike and things like that, but also with your facility, you're competing against other franchises. If you're a franchisee, you're competing certainly against other franchise chains, other franchise brands. Also, to take it up another level, if you're a franchisee, you're competing, assuming there's more than just you and your one location in town, you're competing with other locations within your franchise. And this is true particularly when there are multiple locations. This is something, not only just, Planet Fitness, because I've, traveled and been to different locations in different states and all of that, but this is something I've seen in chains across the nation. Absolutely across the nation. Doesn't matter what franchise brand, doesn't matter we're talking about Orange Theory Fitness, doesn't matter we're talking about Anytime Fitness, doesn't matter Planet Fitness, Powerhouse, it does not matter. LA Fitness, your corporate chains, Lifetime Fitness, people are comparing them, and you may, perhaps your best friend, say you want an Anytime Fitness, all right, for example, and your best friend is a fellow franchisee, and you're both in the same town, and you both have separate locations. Recognize people are bringing your facilities, members, potential members, former members, are bringing your facilities into competition. You've got to understand that dynamic, and it is so powerful to recognize it. Yeah, you may be under the Anytime Fitness brand, but you got to recognize your facility on 3rd Street in Anywhere City, USA, is also competing with the other 3 locations in that particular town, whether you own them or not. You may own them, yes, but people are still comparing them. And there's nowhere that is more evident that drives this point home than online Google and Yelp reviews. Across chains, across fitness brands, in terms of fitness facilities, studios, all of that, people are comparing them. Yes, this is even true for private gyms and studios and YMCA chains. That's what people do. People compare. People, you may not think, oh, I'm not a highly competitive person and I just want to go in and do the best I can, whatever. People are bringing your facilities, those within your franchise brand and chain, but certainly those without, are comparing them like you would not believe. And I challenge you to really look at your city, or even just pick any random, large, medium-sized, large city. You'll see exactly what I mean. When there's multiple locations within a particular fitness brand, or multiple fitness brands, if you're talking about your larger markets, you'll see exactly what I mean. where people say, oh, don't go to this location, go to this location. Oh, well, this one I was a member of this location, but I transferred my membership because they had this, they had that, whatever the case may be. So people are always comparing. And this is going to be a very generous piece of advice I'm about to give right now. And that is, if you own more than one location, and this is true whether you're a franchisee or not, you may be a private gym owner, all right? Maybe, you and YMCAs tend to be more standardized. And so you got to recognize one of the challenges, going back to the SWOT analysis of the franchise model, is overall. So yeah, this could be internally within a franchise. This could also, the SWOT analysis can be applied to a chain of franchise, a fitness brand, a fitness chain, but also just the industry overall. But when you think about the franchise model, whether you're talking about, a Burger King, or whether you're talking about, a daycare chain, whatever the case may be, and particularly where it's relevant within the fitness industry is, with the franchise model, you have a lot of variation, even within the same franchise brand, within the same franchise chain, and there isn't a lot of standardization, all right? And so when we think about, when you've heard me talk about this whole dynamic where we've got a David versus Goliath, situation going on here in Metro Detroit with Crunch Fitness entering our market in March of 2017. And the way I describe Crunch Fitness, after I've been studying them since pre-launch, all the way up to this newer location opening up in Ann Arbor here. And so one thing I can say about that particular chain is a franchise brand, franchise chain with corporate expectations. There's tend to be a very big difference between franchise locations versus corporate locations. And so an advantage that corporate facilities, corporate chains have is this concept of standardization. All right, and that's why I say Crunch being a franchise brand, a rapidly growing franchise brand across the nation. One streak that they have, because they are a franchise with corporate expectations, and what I mean by that particularly is sales and memberships and revenue generation, is their facilities are standardized. And what I mean by that, just to give you a very quick example. And so when we talk about standardization, and this is certainly true, very, very generous piece of advice I'm giving for franchisees, is if you have more than one location, as much as is humanly possible, you want to make sure each and every location has the same machines, the same product offerings. All right, because when you have a lot of variation, and I've seen a lot of that. I mean, this is true in all types of chains. One location, okay, the Novi Anytime Fitness actually went to that grand opening in 2012 when it opened. The Michaels were actually the inaugural couple that owned it. They've sold it to Patrick and Brittany May, and so but their location doesn't have a Jacob's Ladder. When the Farmington Hills location does have a Jacob's Ladder. All right, the Novi location has the Octane, one of my favorite machines at Powerhouse, the Octane lateral trainers, all right? Whereas the Anytime Fitness in Farmington Hills does not have those. Very different owners. So that's what I mean. So from gym to gym, particularly when there's different owners, and that's certainly understandable. There's just different product offering, there's different machines, all right? We're gonna talk about a little bit more of the product on next episode, but that's what I mean by the standardization, and that there's a lot of variation and differences of existing within the same franchise brand. And so that is another realm in which people bring these facilities into competition. So you want to have, standardize your facilities as much as humanly possible. And it's tough because yes, you may open your first location in 2000, and then here you are opening a new location in 2019. The franchise itself has evolved. The types of product may have certainly evolved over the last almost 20 years, but you want to standardize your facilities as much as humanly possible. Because what you're doing is putting some of your facilities at a disadvantage. And so going back to Crunch Fitness, when I talk about the standardization of their facilities, you're not going to walk into any Crunch Fitness in the nation, those that are open now, and find, oh, well, this location has turf. Well, that location doesn't have turf. Well, this location has rowers. Well, that location in that city didn't have rowers. And so that's what I mean by that. You want to have consistency and standardization as much as humanly possible in your facilities. Yeah, you may have space constraints and all of that, but I don't care. You want to have as much as humanly possible similar machines in your facilities, because what you're doing is, if you don't, you're putting some at a disadvantage. And you don't want to put your own facilities at a disadvantage. And that's certainly a bigger threat to the certainly the Michigan market, with the fact that, you know, Adam, you don't have multiple owners of different facilities. Like, he has the rights to the state of Michigan, and he partnered with a real estate expert, James, and so that's a situation where there's not going to be a whole lot of variation because it's the same owners. All right, and so that's what you want to do, folks. You just want to, yeah, that particular chain, you know, has that dynamic with, you know, standardized facilities, but you don't want, I mean, I see that all the time in various different, particularly just franchise brands, and certainly I've seen it within Planet Fitness, even in the same franchise groups. Some machines, some facilities have rowers and recumbent steppers right here in Metro Detroit, and some don't. All right, and so that's putting certain facilities at a disadvantage compared to others, and you see that all the time on reviews. This location has this. Well, this location, I went to this location on this side of town, and they had this, and my facility doesn't. And you got multiple owners, and that certainly confounds the situation, but as much as humanly possible for your own facilities. That's all you control, what you can control. You want to have your facilities being as similar as possible, because that's just adding another layer of complexity in terms from a marketing standpoint of what you're offering. And if people don't do inconsistency well, they will complain, they will go online and write online reviews and all of that, saying, well, I went to this one and it has this, and this one didn't have this, and my own facility doesn't have that. People do it all the time. And so I just don't want you or any of your facilities to be at a disadvantage, and I think it's quite something that's possibly just overlooked. But I just want you to just strive for standardization as much as humanly possible, because people like predictability. They want to go to one type of chain gym and see this, and they want to go to another location and also see the same thing as much as humanly possible. So I just wanted to share that, folks. Think about that. So you got general competition, you got inter-franchise competition, then you got intra-franchise competition. And you always want to come out on top. You don't want folks dismissing your facility because it doesn't have what the one 3 miles down the road doesn't have. And that's why it's so important to keep in mind, yes, you may be best friends with a fellow franchisee, but you got to recognize, particularly if you guys aren't partners and you're owning different gyms, you're competing with one another without a doubt. All right, and so yes, be friendly, be collegial, all of that, teamwork, work together, but recognize at the end of the day, you're competing. All right, and you don't want to lose the competition based on this other person having stuff that's certainly approved and part of the vendor protocol and all of that in terms of the machine offerings within your facility, because this other person, your best friend, has stuff that you don't have, and people are flocking to that person's gym because you don't have it. All right, you can always count on me telling the truth, and I think this is a very big point that a lot of people miss out on. All right, as much as humanly possible, just like Crunch Fitness, repeating it one last time, a franchise chain with corporate expectations. All right, and that's why that Riverview, Florida location last year broke a record for Crunch Fitness, founded in 1989. 2,915 gym memberships sold in the first 24 hours of pre-sale. So that's why I'm saying corporate expectations. I mean, that's, what are sales looking like? What's happening? All right, and part of that success nationally is, and why they're one of the top ranked chains in the Club Industry magazine, Planet Fitness, Crunch Fitness. All right, so you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can to put yourself on a level, to make a level playing field, quite frankly, and that's all I'm going to say about that, folks. But I want to shift gears here as I'm about to close this episode out. We talk about, what's important to the success of a chain, of a particular fitness facility, and that is when you think about competition and how hard it is. And we talk about how Amazon has really turned the marketplace, particularly bricks and mortar marketplace, on its head. And it seems like every week, every couple of weeks, every month, we're constantly hearing of retail brands, retail chains closing all their stores, closing half their stores, closing some of their stores, because they can't compete with just online and Amazon and just Amazon is just really killing it, highly disruptive in the marketplace. And so, but this particular article appeared in Advertising Age, and I used to read this back in my days, even going back to grad school, when I was in Northwestern. It was great. But anyway, got a subscription. I actually got a complimentary subscription, and this article actually appeared, let me find the date here, just always like to give a reference point for all of that. So May 27, 2019. They actually have 24 editions a year. They used to be every week. But anyway, just the magazine and newspaper sector is also suffering from the digitization now of news and content. So they're feeling it as well. And so folks, this particular article is an opinion piece entitled Rooms with a Unique View, How Building Hotels is Giving Lifestyle Brands Added Staying Power. So Janessa Carter wrote this article, and I just want to read something really quickly. And she is Strategy Director at Isobar US. And so I've got a couple of paragraphs here I want to highlight here. In today's world, you're unlikely to compete successfully against Amazon on price, but you might win on brand experience. The hospitality industry is the ultimate training ground for that. Every detail must be designed to allow the customer's lifestyle to unfold for the length of their stay. Even the staff are well trained to interact with guests on behalf of the brand. They are, in essence, brand ambassadors with a unique opportunity to get to know customers on a deep and meaningful level. It's a chance to create a level of personalization that far exceeds the expectations of the digital experience. And so what does this article say? I mean, it's tough, you're not gonna win with Amazon, price, whatever, but what can you do? How, from a competitive standpoint, in terms of your strengths and weaknesses, what type of strengths can you garner by essentially describing and even sometimes giving them the titles, your employees, brand ambassadors? All right, for your particular chain, your studio, your chain of studios, your YMCA, whatever. All right, brand ambassadors, empowering them, but also letting them know. I mean, we can give them something, particularly on a personalized level, personalization as the article stated. We can give them something that others cannot. And it is a personalized, human-to-human experience. And so I thought that was powerful. A lot of people are feeling, how do I compete with the lower cost gyms and all of that? And my gym costs $90 a month, and how can I compete with that? And it's always about creating experience. And the same is true for the low cost gyms. All right, how do we, and particularly with no contracts, all right, how can we keep people? How can we cut our member churn? How can we do better with retention? And it comes back to people, it comes back to the people that you have. I'm going to talk more about that next episode. In terms of why folks choose a location, will not choose a location. And I've talked about, why I write certain, Planet Fitness member surveys, why I do it sometimes, why I don't sometimes. I'm going to talk more about that specifically next episode. Don't have time for this episode. But the type of experience that your staff can create can be vital to your facility or chain of facilities success, quite frankly. And I want to close this episode out here by highlighting, and I'm always doing surveys and giving feedback, writing letters. I mean, I do all types of things. But you've heard me alluded to my recent, and as of April 30th, when I had my kickoff meeting for the very first clinical trial, my participation as a healthy volunteer, as a member of a control group. That's my role in these clinical trials. But the MyPack trial. And so I'm having a great time doing that, just learning so much and just really enjoying the experience. And actually a newer study, so that for one study turned into 4 different studies. 2 are now, I'm in phase 2. I'm moving on to phase 2 in the 2 ongoing studies. But possibly now, I was emailing back and forth on Friday, possibly will be in the end of July, the end of June to the end of July is their scheduling time frame, maybe in an automotive research study now for the University of Michigan. So stay tuned, but I'm really enjoying it. But folks, on Saturday morning, so the 8th of June, I wrote University of Michigan, and I wanted to close with this, talking about brand ambassadors, creating the unique experience. So Michigan Medicine actually has an employee recognition program. And so they've got this whole form that you can fill out, and it's got the name and the person's role, and you make a difference because, and I write too much. So this would not have been enough room. So I grabbed a couple of these because I wanted to recognize a couple of employees for the CARS study, which is actually the 4th study that I've been doing. So self-addressed, so people don't have to worry about buying a stamp, and that's going to reduce your participation rate. So they make it for you very easy. But there's also an email address here, there's an email address, but there's also a URL where you can go online to submit it, which I did. And I recognized a couple of employees, and I want to read the feedback that I submitted on both of their halves. I did 2 different recognitions. But just wanted to share this as I'm going to be talking more about people, people in place. You know, I talk about that's how you, in terms of looking at the framework of evaluating a facility, the people and the place. We're going to talk more about that next time, but just wanted to highlight the feedback that I shared on these two individuals. So the two individuals, their names are Nicole Schaefer, who is a clinical research coordinator, and Elena Sokolowski, clinical subjects coordinator. So here's my feedback. I'm a healthy volunteer patient / control group participant in the CARS study. So far, I've had 2 initial appointments on, and I put the dates, May 22nd, 2019 and June 7th, 2019. I was so impressed by their professionalism and commitment to excellence. They went over every detail of the informed consent to making sure I had copies of my signed forms. They explained each and every process and study activity as we went along. I had lots of questions and they patiently answered them. More than once, coworkers walked up and hugged them. I commented on how close their work group was. They explained that they both used to work in the pulmonary lab and those were former coworkers they hadn't seen in a while. I asked about their tenure and they explained that they loved their jobs and were truly interested in clinical research. I'd be remiss not to share that they oozed happiness and passion. The hospitality that they showed me was noteworthy. Please thank these two for me. This clinical trial experience is outstanding. And I put the outstanding in all caps, and I only had 3 characters left, so I totally ran out of room, and I knew I wasn't going to make it on this. But folks, that is the feedback I submitted. Now, it's important to note that this feedback goes to Michigan Medicine Human Resources. So I wanted, so this is right to HR. So as I think about, looking at my own feedback that I submitted, going to HR, and of course I knew that when I wrote it, I highlighted some things that are important to HR, like compliance. That's demonstrated by the fact that they went over every detail of the informed consent to making sure I had copies of my signed form. HR, there's certain things that that are important to the organization, particularly in a clinical research, clinical trial setting. Are they following the policies and procedures? What's happening? Also, as I talked about, the coworkers, walking up, hugging, hey, how you doing, Elena? Hey, how you doing, Nicole? How's it going? How's your wedding planning going? All of this and that. Just oozed happiness. And you could see the teamwork, and you could see just the fact that they truly respected and valued one another. And they're standing there chatting for a minute or so, catching up. And we both started out at the pulmonary lab, and these are people we used to work with. But it's clearly, how often do you see coworkers in any organization walking up, hugging each other, and just catching up? And it's so good to see you, and it's genuine. It's genuine. It was wonderful. All right, and just another thing I'll point out here quickly before I wrap this up, I'd be remiss to not to share that they oozed happiness and passion. Okay, something that is very important to HR people, particularly in terms of their staff and employees, is employee satisfaction and engagement. All right, because those 2 factors, you can measure those, there's metrics and all of that, but those determine, okay, how happy are our people? How engaged are our people? Are they on their way out of the door? Because again, dissatisfied people and disengaged employees are ripe, or certainly flight risks for finding another job, leaving, quitting, whatever, this and that. And sometimes it's painfully obvious when people are unhappy and they're disengaged. And we'll get into all of that. But folks, these 2 folks were absolutely phenomenal. This experience, and I compare it to the other 3, would have always been strong, they've certainly been strong in their own right. But this experience is absolutely outstanding, as I described it. So I did not want to, again, wait till it's going to be a year-long study, because I agreed to move on to phase 2 and a longer participation. I didn't want to wait, to the end of the study to share this type of feedback. When I see people that are killing it, that are making stuff happen, that are positive representations of their organization, regardless of what type it is, I am doing that. Why? Because most employees, with all due respect of any organization or entity, are going to be right here under this bell curve. They're going to be mean, they're going to be average employees, whatever. They're making stuff happen, and that's great. But what I'm always looking at is for the positive outliers. And these 2, in this situation, are positive outliers. And so when I see something like that, I am very quick to share feedback. If that means I've got to take 20 minutes on a Saturday morning to submit this feedback and all of this, and I'm going to make it happen. Because I think when you see that, and it's so rare to see these extreme positive outliers, folks need to be recognized. Folks need to be recognized. And so we talk about, creating brand ambassadors for Michigan Medicine clinical research. These are two excellent ones. Going back to that article I just read on, how you can beat Amazon, how you can, in terms of, people participating in clinical trials and research at the University of Michigan versus other entities and hospitals in our Metro Detroit area. All right, so having strong people, we'll talk about that next episode, having strong people that are creating strong experiences is something that you have control over. All right, you can't control other competitors coming into your market, but the people that you hire, having happy, satisfied, engaged staff members that understand their roles, that are passionate about what they're doing, in this case, that are passionate about fitness, that are in it for the right reasons, that are not looking just to collect a paycheck, and they don't give a rat's behind about their own fitness or anyone else's. Okay, and then people wonder why the fitness industry has so much high turnover. So no, you deserve highly passionate, engaged, satisfied employees that are making things happen for you, that are making you look good, that are making your facility look good or your chain of facilities look good. It is a possibility, but you've got to believe that it is possible, that you deserve it, that your members, current members and prospective members, and even sometimes former members deserve it. So folks, that's all I have for you today. I cannot wait to continue this conversation next week. This marketing series is going to be meaty. I assure you, but I'm so excited. So don't be dismayed when other competitors come into the market, because that is a true test. If you've been by yourself and you've been killing the market and owning the market, it is a true test when these other folks come in and challenge your market leadership. That is a wonderful thing. That is a good thing. And we're going to continue this conversation next time, folks. But that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for next week. But until then, remember, I am positively passionate about your fitness and success. Make it a great day.